they toughened us for war. In the high school auditorium, Ed Monahan knocked out Dominic Esposito in the first round of the heavyweight finals. And 10 months later, Dom died at the third wave at Tarawa. Every morning of the war, our Brock Hall Dairy delivered milk from horse-drawn wagons to wooden back porches in southern Connecticut. In winter, frozen cream lifted the cardboard lids of glass bottles, grade A or grade B, while Marines bled to death in the surf. Or the right engine faltered into Channel Silt, or the troops marched. What could we do with our frostbitten feet as white as milk?
The title of the poem tells the reader that the poem takes place in 1943. This is during the time period of World War II, so the reader can guess from the very beginning what this poem will be about. Because of the subject of the poem and the viewpoints expressed in it, we can assume that the speaker is a teenager during World War II. The speaker is most likely male because although we cannot assume the author is a speaker, Donald would have been 15 years old in 1943. Being drafted would have been something weighing heavily on a young man's mind because the Selective Training and Service Act had just been passed 3 years earlier. This act was a peacetime draft that established the draft age to be 21 years old. The action in this poem is somewhat disconnected and random. The author mentions milk twice and talks about soldiers dying in Tarawa, as well as what life is like back in the States, despite the turmoil that is present in the rest of the world. Throughout the poem, Hall makes use of enjambment. This figurative device places emphasis on the latter part of the sentence that is part of the second stanza. Hall's use of a simile here is the second time that milk has been mentioned. Milk is a possible symbol of motherhood, like in Invisible Man, because war represents the loss of innocence. Milk could also be a representation of life going on as normal without the sacrifice of daily luxuries in the United States, while Marines bled to death in the surf. The tone of the speaker in this poem is somewhat helpless. He is appalled at the fact that life can go on as normal while so much death and horror is being experienced by the speaker's peers in World War II. In line 10, the author shifted from his original tone of bitterness to a tone of that of despair and weakness. The majority of the poem shows how weak youth reaction and delinquency can be in the face of authority.